Hey guys, welcome to another Fighter Pilot Fitness video. I'm Locksmith, and as you can tell from my surroundings versus the last video that I posted, I have since moved once again from the tents that we were staying in into something a little more hotel room-like, complete with its own air conditioner, refrigerator, and bathroom. So any of the jokes that you might have been saving about Air Force officers needing those things in order to have a successful deployment, you can go ahead and employ those in the comments below, and I will continue to ignore them and scoff them wholesale. Don't worry, there's still a little bit of time left in the deployment for upgrades. However, there is not any more time for bulking. So if you've been watching some of my previous videos, you remember me saying that I'm up to 3,700 calories per day in order to maintain a steady, consistent weight gain. That's probably really weird to those of you who have struggled with weight loss as I have done in the past, but during that time, the focus is on growth in both size and strength, utilizing heavy resistance training, primarily of the compound variety. As of just a few days ago, my average weight is coming in at about 207 pounds, which is heavier than I'm used to, and even with the focus of trying to gain muscle, some of that weight is definitely fat. My body is going to put some of that extra energy into fat stores for times when calories might not be as readily available. And so now I've reached the point where it's time to cut. And first I want to talk about why a fighter pilot might want to cut weight. There are several practical benefits to dropping weight, to dropping fat mass. That includes increased agility, flexibility, overall performance, endurance. Anecdotally, I can feel the effects of the extra heft that I'm carrying around, just moving more sluggishly in general, being a little bit more lethargic as I try to move the extra weight. Specific to my athleticism in the cockpit, I do have a little bit more trouble turning and moving in the cockpit as I'm wearing all that gear and just trying to get situated in the seat, especially as I'm trying to maintain awareness of maybe a bandit that's behind me and I have to crane my body around in order to get a better vantage on the adversary. That type of athleticism in the cockpit has certainly been impaired as a result of the bulk. Also, practically a lean figure is just easier to maintain once it's achieved, which means more time devoted to the things that matter both in and out of the squadron, maybe more time with my family, more time studying in the vault, and less time focused on really trying to craft my body into what I need or want it to be for performance and aesthetics. There are studies that link negative trends in male testosterone levels to excessive amounts of adipose tissue or excessive amounts of fat storage. Conversely, getting too low in body fat can also be associated with a drop in endocrine function, but those competition levels of body fat percentages aren't what I will be going for during this cut. There are other long-term health risks of excessive adipose tissue that apply to everyone regardless of job or gender, particularly the type of fat known as visceral fat that's carried in and around the organs in the abdominal cavity is linked to higher blood pressure, heart disease, decreased insulin sensitivity, and even diabetes. And all of these studies that I've casually referenced will be listed down below in the description for further reference. Okay, so those are all of the practical benefits that I can think of, and some of them apply specifically to the fighter pilot lifestyle, some of them apply to anybody. It would be completely dishonest of me, however, to ignore the major set of personal reasons that someone might want to cut weight or that I want to cut weight, and those include all the things that we think about all the time with weight loss. Aesthetically, I want to look better, and I want to feel better as well, and that means both confidence-wise and movement-wise. I want my clothes to fit better during the bulk. There are some of my clothes that have tightened up in certain areas. I want to be able to have more eating freedom. I want to not be on a weight gain trend anymore so that the occasional splurge or cheat day doesn't go so far as to push me outside of the window of weight that I'm comfortable with. And I think those are probably more of the reasons that we would think of in terms of why somebody would want to start a cut. So speaking of looking better, I want to take a brief moment and look at my physique as it is now at the end of the bulk and go over a few things and some of the changes that I hope to make. Okay, so the first thing about this guy that you see here in the picture, mustache, absolutely on point, crushing it, and easy weight loss, I would say, in terms of the ½ ounce of body hair that I'll be able to shave off as soon as the deployment is over. Also, this guy, too happy, too much of a smile going on for a fighter pilot. Hopefully we can rectify that in future pictures and look more like a stone cold killer and less like he's posing for his first ever driver's license. Also, I will make a note here, speaking of posing, I have no idea what I'm doing with posing. I've never competed for any sort of physique anything, so I'm just kind of standing in front of a mirror and trying to flex differently or stand relaxed, depending on the picture that I'm taking, and showcase my physique as it stands now. You can tell from the pictures here that I tend to store excess body fat kind of in that lower back fat region that nobody likes. The love handles situation is definitely strong in some of these pictures. There is an easy way in pictures to fix some of that back fat, and you'll notice it in this picture where I simply move my arm in front of it, and now problem solved, no more worries with the back fat. I am also carrying some of the extra body fat just around the abdominal area, and what you can't see from the picture is also in my legs and my glute region. I store some excess fat there. So just kind of all the areas that people generally want to tighten up, that's where I'm keeping the extra fat that I've stored throughout the bulk, even despite the muscle gain, and that's what I'll be trying to shave away as we move into the cut. Now, seeing this picture, I will be completely honest that if I had seen a picture that looked like this when I was truly obese, I would have completely scoffed somebody saying that this body needs to lose weight. I would have said, I would love to look like that. And the principles that I'm going to talk about in crafting the calorie deficit actually apply universally to a bunch of starting points. And I would give the same advice that I'm about to give to anybody who was starting from something like this all the way to very obese, carrying a lot of extra body fat, and I have been there. So I don't want you to think that I'm looking at this and saying, oh, I'm so fat, I clearly need to cut all this weight. I have reached a goal weight, and I am now trying to shave back down to another goal weight that has a better body composition. So before you write it off as another guy who has an easy time losing weight or already looks okay, please know that I'm talking about a myriad set of starting points, and for me, this will be my starting point going into the cut. So there's why a fighter pilot might cut and why I am going to cut. And if I can lay it out in terms of objectives, because fighter pilots like to talk in terms of specific measurable objectives, my objectives are to lose body fat, preserve muscle mass, maintain muscle mass, and maximize enjoyability and therefore sustainability throughout the cut. The last thing I want to do is make the cut so unbearable that it becomes impossible to stick to, and therefore I just fall off the wagon and have a hard time reaching my goals. So let's get into specifically how I'm going to accomplish the cut. Overall, it comes down to a calorie deficit for fat loss, for weight loss, and macronutrient balance, macronutrient breakdown to prevent muscle loss and target fat specifically, as well as maintain that factor of enjoyability that I already talked about. So hopefully you've seen my introduction to nutrition video, and if not, here's a quick summary. I talked about and highlighted the importance of a calorie deficit as the main driver of weight loss. I'm not saying that specific diets that target higher protein or lower fat or lower carbs or higher carbs can't be effective. I'm saying that the reason they wind up being effective, and this comment would have frustrated me as somebody who adhered to a low-carb lifestyle for so long, the dieter winds up eating fewer calories overall as a result of the food restrictions that they have placed on the overall diet. If you have a specific diet in mind that works for your weight loss goals, I would encourage you to stick to it. I would just also highlight that you're probably already eating calories commensurate with your goals if the weight is coming off as a result of the foods your particular diet emphasizes. For me, I am going to be setting a daily calorie goal for eating, and then I'm going to craft a particular macronutrient breakdown in order to add up to those calories during the day. I'm going to be using a set number for my daily total energy expenditure in terms of calories, rather than trying to track small specific fluctuations in my daily calorie needs. That is the system that I recommend as a result of my experiences and my reading. You can try to target specific calories in versus calories out, but I ultimately submit that you'll be more successful and probably less neurotic about the whole thing if you just set a daily average calorie goal and then try to stick to that throughout the week. That 3,700 number was only the calories that I was eating toward the final weeks of the bulk. Based on the way my body responded in the bulk, I'm estimating my maintenance calories to be somewhere in the 3,000, 3,100, maybe even 3,200 per day in order to maintain the weight that I'm at. 3,200 calories sounds like a dream to, I'm sure, a lot of people out there. Keep in mind, I'm flying a ton, I'm working out a ton, and I'm generally sleeping pretty well minus the occasional international wartime scare flare-up. A pound of fat carries about 3,500 calories worth of energy. Most conventional cutting efforts will target a 500 calorie per day deficit times 7 days of the week, resulting in 1 pound of fat lost every week, or at least that's the goal. It is what I will use as a starting point for this cut, but I do want to point out that someone crafting a cut based on those numbers shouldn't necessarily expect to lose 1 pound per week like clockwork. Initially, the body will also dump some extra water weight that was being carried around, and weight loss can be inconsistent as a result of changing metabolism. Other variables like food still being in the stomach, water retention or water loss, are all going to influence the actual rate of weight lost. It's not necessarily true that a 3,500 calorie weekly deficit will always result in 1 pound lost per week. Nevertheless, it is a starting point, and it is a tried and true starting point, so I'll be starting with a 2,700 calorie per day target, and I will just know that as I lose weight, I will need to adjust that number to see how my body's responding and keep the weight loss on track. Unfortunately, I cannot expect that all the weight that I will lose will be as a result of body fat. The body will first and foremost use dietary carbohydrates for energy, followed by glucose stores in the muscles and the liver in the form of glycogen. After glycogen stores are depleted, fatty triacylglycerols from adipose tissue are used as the foundation for the body's energy needs primarily, and that's exactly what I'm going for, is burning that fat for energy. That being said, there are two dangers at play during the cut. The first is that as fat becomes less available, the body does have the capability and propensity to break down muscle into energy by turning muscle tissue into amino acids. Even before that, a much more immediate threat is that the muscle tissue will be unable to recover from normal exercise-induced damage, meaning performance and size can begin to suffer well before the body is fully tapping into muscle tissue for energy. So during the cut, I've got two factors that I'm going to be applying in order to lose fat and preserve muscle. The first factor is a very specific macronutrient breakdown for the cut. I'll be eating a lot of protein during the cut as a buffer against muscle degradation, and I'm going to be targeting 1 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight in terms of protein consumption. Now, there's a lot of discussion in the fitness community and a lot of studies and meta-analyses that corroborate a whole range of protein consumption, and the bottom line is that I'm probably safe at slightly lower levels of protein intake, with about a gram per pound of body weight being kind of an accepted easy metric. But I also don't lose anything from adding more protein to the diet, and I find protein to be particularly filling, so I'm going to also apply that to the enjoyability factor of the cut. So that'll be around 235 grams of protein per day, which equates to about 940 calories at 4 calories per gram of protein. For carbs and fat, I've got a little bit of wiggle room based on my reading, personal experience, and studies. I've got some preferential decisions to make on how I want to balance the carbs and the fat. For carbohydrates, having done low-carb diets in the past, I'm aiming to keep the carbohydrate intake on this diet at a moderate level, so I still have some readily available glycogen for aggressive gym work and just to increase the enjoyability of the foods that I get to eat on the cut. I like bread, pasta, cereal, etc., so carbs are definitely on the menu. I'm going to target also 235 grams of carbohydrates during the cut, which equates to another 940 calories out of my daily 2,700 starting goal. That leaves the remaining 820 or so calories from fat, so about 90 grams of fat per day, with dietary fat providing 9 calories per gram. That's a little bit on the higher side than some other approaches, but keep in mind that this portion is largely preferential, and you could even skew it a little bit more toward the fats if you felt so inclined. In a deficit, I shouldn't be storing body fat basically at all, so I'll just enjoy the occasional fattier meats, cheeses, oils, butter, or dairy-based desserts to keep things interesting. I generally like to keep my fats a little bit higher during a cut because of the important role that dietary fat does play in the body. It supports brain function, it makes up a significant portion of cellular structure, it carries vitamins around the body in an absorbable form, and it supports major endocrine operation. The other area that I've got to focus on during the cut is my work in the gym in order to preserve muscle mass. I'm going to stick with the heavy compound lifting like you've seen me do in previous videos. The last thing I want to do in the cut is switch to an overly cardio-centric workout schedule, so I'm going to continue to implement cardio like you've already seen in the deployed workout series, but the weights are still going to be a major focus. Although I do want to burn fat, I don't want to be constantly pushing my body during this deficit, so much so that my muscles are unable to recover with intense cardio, or that my body begins to turn to amino acids for some available energy. Another major facet of this approach is that I want to signal to my body that I need muscle mass. If I switch to tons of cardio, what I'm essentially saying to my body is I need to be smaller, I need to be slimmer, I need to be able to move faster for longer. And while a lot of that sounds good and is partially true, I need to keep the heavy weight stimulus that tells my body, please don't sacrifice this muscle tissue, I still need it. So there's the gist of the diet plan: calorie deficit, solid protein consumption, moderate carbohydrates, moderate fats, continued heavy weight training, and moderate cardio. All of that should add up to accomplish my objectives of steady, consistent weight loss while maintaining performance both in the gym and in the jet, and maintaining overall enjoyability during the cut. There is one other thing I'm going to do to increase the enjoyability from the get-go. I'm going to be implementing weekly refeed days, and I can discuss more in future videos how I'm going to implement these refeed days, but the basic idea is that one day of the week I will go back to eating at a calorie surplus, mainly in the form of carbohydrates, in order to keep my metabolism high and continue the long-term weight loss. In this particular cut, I'm going to try a kind of new thing for the channel where I'm going to use essentially a capped cheat day or capped feasting day as a refeed day, meaning the surplus of calories that I'm going to implement will be pretty large. I'm going to go for between 5,000 and 6,000 calories on my one day a week that I target a calorie surplus. Always prepared to adjust to see what I can get away with, especially since I'm not in any huge rush to lose the fat. I've mentioned Nick Dampierre, which is another fitness YouTuber, and he's had success with this method in his cuts and in his bulks. Now, the question I would have watching this video would be, wait, doesn't a day of eating that many calories essentially take your weekly deficit down to 1,500, 1,000, or even 0 calorie deficit for the entire week? And depending on how big I go on those capped cheat days, on those refeed days, that's essentially true by the numbers. A normal refeed day is just at a previously established maintenance level of calories, or just above a maintenance level of calories with a few more carbohydrates thrown in to keep the diet moving along. And that's basically the approach that I would recommend to somebody who was trying to implement refeeds into a diet that they were adhering to. However, if you remember me talking about the results of my bulk, I tried this same approach during the bulk, and I found that even with a huge calorie surplus at the end of the week, my weight gain had plateaued and I was essentially maintaining the same average weight. Therefore, the weight gain wasn't what I would have expected focusing on the numbers alone. So that's something that I want to try, counting on a hypothesis that the acute intake of excessive calories on just one day of the week won't actually add up to the purely by the numbers results that I might expect. And what that does give me is one day of the week to really look forward to, whether that's I'm back home and I'm able to go out with my family and just enjoy more food, or I'm able to spend more time pushing it up with the bros in the squadron. In either case, I'll have one day per week that I can really look forward to implementing those extra calories. All right, that is the cutting plan. I want to know, what do you think? Do you think it'll work? You can leave me comments below, you can send me an email, you can leave a Facebook comment, or go over and check out the Instagram and let me know. Do you struggle with fat loss? Maybe you haven't even begun to struggle with fat loss and you have some questions that you think I didn't really cover in this video. You can always reach out with those questions and I will try to get back to you in a timely manner. Throughout the cut, I'll also be making more videos that cover what I'm eating, how I'm lifting, how I'm flying, what I'm doing in and out of the squadron, and how my progress is going. Those videos will probably further explore some of the questions that people might have. A special shout out to my sister for the amazing work that she has done on the Fighter Pilot Fitness iconography and logo design. She's already crushing it on a daily basis, and she's somehow finding time on the side to help me out with some awesome stuff for the channel. So stay tuned to future uploads and you will no doubt see some of her amazing work continue to be featured. On another note, I am almost getting ready to go home. It is almost time to get out of the desert heat and get back to my family, and I cannot wait for that day to arrive. I look forward to introducing you guys to life back at home station and what that's like. I'm so appreciative of everyone who has subscribed to the channel. I would appreciate your consideration in subscribing and liking the videos that have been piquing your interest. I still have that Eagle swag that I mentioned that I have flown with me in the jet, and I still plan on sending that out to a subscriber at the 500 subscriber milestone, which is something else that is right around the corner, and I'm looking forward to it. With that, see you next time, and thank you so much for watching.